There's a lot of times you have to say no. The money is important, as you know, as we all know, and but there's a time that you've got to say, "Hey, this job is not for me," or I don't fit in your budget. The way you look at that and the way I price things now. And of course, I used to look at it as a 20 was a 20. I needed that $20, and that's 20 more than I had when I started that morning. But that's not necessarily true. If you're trying to gain $20 and you're spending 100 to gain that $20, you're going in the hole. So now I
Hmm.
price my jobs accordingly, and sometimes I overprice my jobs because I know it's going to take me so much time that I'm just like, hey, if I'm going to have to spend this time digging, I'm going to get paid for it. So yes, I find that it helps a lot.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Opti-Coat Podcast, where we share stories from detailing professionals and highlight cutting edge products, techniques, and tools that'll help your detailing to accelerate into the future. Wherever you're listening or watching this podcast, please follow, like, subscribe, and share with a friend. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Yeah,
Better.
that looks good. Yeah.
Awesome.
I love your office.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love my office every day, man. You can't beat being in the sun and outside and working, doing what you love doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you have a boat yourself? At least
No,
one?
absolutely not. I have a
Oh,
pontoon. Yeah, I have a pontoon we work off of, but come Friday, I want to be off the water because I
yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
see my clients. I don't want to have to deal with nothing. My time is my time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're off to a great start. I don't think we need to cut any of that out. I just want to say welcome to the Opti-Coat Podcast. And we've got Tug, our co-host, and we've got Scott, our guest, the boat guru in Kentucky, right?
No, I'm in Tennessee.
Oh, you're in Tennessee.
Yep, yep.
About where?
I'm in Middle Tennessee around Cookville. I'm in on Center Hill Lake. I'm about 3.5 hours from the mothership.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
Sounds good. Northwest?
East.
Northeast. Okay. Cookville.
Yep.
You've been there. How long you been there?
I've been 16 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Been
Yeah,
here
so that
all my
sounds.
life, but working detailing 16 years.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. All right. How'd you get into detailing?
Wanted to buy a little girl a ring back when I was about 16 years old. So I went to cleaning cars at $20 a pop. Worked at a gas station. I pumped gas and washed cars there. So I thought, well, I can do this on my own. So I bought a
Hmm.
ring, and then I ended up started fishing and traded a detail for a guide trip and got hung on fishing. Then I went to college and started working at a boat dealership, and that's all I did was detail at a boat dealership when I was probably 18.
Wow. So when you were 18, what did detailing look like on boats?
The guy gave me a scrub brush, a bucket, a bottle of bleach, and a thing of Dawn, and said, "Hit it." Of course, it was tough. It really was, and I thought, I'm never going to make it at this. But the way I train my guys, I train them the same way. They have to learn the hard way in case they don't have the right tools to do the job when they're there.
Wow. Yeah. Start with what you got.
Yep, yep.
So, how'd you learn about uh what did buffing and polishing look like back then, and how'd you start getting into doing some more elaborate things on boats?
Well, back then we had an old DeWalt and a wool pad, which I hated. I hate a wool pad still to today. I know
Hmm.
everybody loves the wool pad and they love that 10,000 RPM rotary, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull the DA and a foam pad out any day. But I
Hmm.
started using an old DeWalt and a Porter cable at the dealership, and all he had was 3M heavy cut. So I cut my teeth on that, and that's how I started. And up until today, man, it's so much easier today compared to back in the
Oh yeah.
80s.
Yeah. What's your go-to polisher now?
I use the Opti-DA a lot. That is my go-to polisher. If I really need some cutting, I still got my 3401 that I started, when I started my business 16 years ago. If I have to really cut, I pull that out.
Hmm.
Are you doing any polishing on the water?
Yes, every day. We use it on the lifts. We do our boats on the lifts mostly, and we polish on the water every day.
So you use battery powered when
No,
you're on the boat on the water?
no, actually, I've not really got into the battery power. We use all corded DAs.
Oh wow. Okay, great. So you're
Hmm.
just
Yep,
coming off the dock
yep,
or off the
coming
boat?
off the dock. Yep,
Oh, okay. Wow. And yeah, so like you said, you using 3M back in the day.
no.
And then you're what do you think of hyper polish and hyper compound? Are they can you get rid of them?
No, absolutely not. I think that the hyper compound, of course, the RV and marine polish that I use helps me considerably, because it'll cut the oxidation and finish out to, the perfect finish. So I don't dust. If we get it on the rubbers, we wash it off with water, and then, it makes my life so much easier.
Right, I forgot to mention the polish that's specifically made for RVs and boats. That's
Yes.
got to be a game changer.
It was. It definitely was. G really helped me out when we come up with that.
Yeah. And then what's your go-to pad?
My go-to pad is an orange. I use a 6.5 inch on the Optimum DA. We have been using the new yellow pads here lately. I
Mhm.
like them. They're a little more denser. They cut a little better. And on our heavier cuts, we'll pull out the compound out, and I like it as well.
Okay, yeah. So you're using
Yeah.
the orange or the yellow for most of it. Like you said, you're hardly going to
Yes.
wool or microfiber.
No, I rarely go to wool. I know everybody likes wool. I don't like the mess it makes when you go to spurring and cleaning your pads, and it just seems like to me in the long run, the less mess I make, the more efficient I am, and I can get in and out, in no time. So our average ski boat will spend, I'd say, probably interior, exterior, probably a couple 3 hours, and I'm done and
Wow.
walk away and collect my money.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
And then are you a pad washer guy?
No, I mean, when you're on the water, it's hard to carry all these tools. So, yes, the pad washer is great if you need it, but in my field, I use the damp microfiber, and I rotate my pad on it and I clean it that way.
Oh, okay. All right. How'd you get introduced to Opti-Coat?
Um, Back in the day, went through a divorce and started detailing again in '09. I worked with, it was our South rep, Chris Thomas, back in the day.
Hmm.
He was one of my good friends, and we were actually, detailing together. So we started that. Uh, he evidently done something, and we didn't, see eye to eye again. He left Opti. um, I pulled in with Dan and Ivan and Mac, and we all trained together. And so, I mean, I've been around this industry for a long time with all those people. So,
Hmm.
Chris actually gave me, the knowledge to start using Opti. And I mean, it's been my go-to ever since. I mean, it's exclusive. I mean, somebody asked me what to use, other than Opti. I can't tell you, because I mean, that's my full time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. You've been using Opti for how many years now, you're saying?
16 years exclusively in my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited with you know, I've not been with Opti for 16 years, and recently there's been so many amazing products coming out. It just seems like there's a fresh wave of things happening, and it's been really exciting. What's been your experience over the years? And you just seem, I see your most recent videos I'm seeing, you're just still so happy with the products you're using and the tools that you're using from Opti. What's been your experience lately? Just seeing new guys coming in and getting excited about the products. What's your take on this most recent generation?
Well, I think the generation is actually coming back. I think a lot of people got a bad taste in their mouth, because, we lost a lot of installers. We lost a lot of our big go-to guys, and now they've ventured out, and I see a lot of them coming back. Like Chris Marlin is back with us, and I mean, Chris Marlin was a staple to us. He was in our time when Chris Thomas was there and Ivan and Dan was there. So I see a lot of new installers coming back, but I noticed that there's so much changes Dr. G has done to our products and making them more efficient to us. I think that our marketplace is going to be a lot better and it's going to be a lot easier. The chemical use is so easy. It's hard to do an hour podcast, because it's so simple. I mean, you just use it and you go on. And like I said, I told you it's going to be hard to talk for an hour about boat detailing because I use O&R, I use Power Clean, I use our RV Marine and Polish, and I walk away.
Yeah. How many boats or RV interiors are you finding people are opting to go for the Opti-Guard interior coatings?
The OptiGuard has really taken off for, I don't do as many RV because I'm primarily boat. The RV and interior coating is really catching on. I mean, it really helps protect. I see a lot of cut down on mold and mildew. If the mold and mildew attaches to the surface, usually O&R, or if it's really attached, I go to Power Clean and I have no issues whatsoever. Suntan oil doesn't stick to it. Your daily cleaning is so much easier. It makes your O&R work so much more efficient.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that we were kind of chatting about before we went live with the podcast was, we're all family guys here, and I just kind of wanted to see if you wanted to share a little bit about how does operating business in detailing impact family life, and what's most important to you, and how does that help you make decisions with jobs you're taking on and getting off the clock and spending time with family? What does that all mean to you?
Well, I'm so far in my career now with my 16 years that I find that I can spend more time with family. Of course, growing a business, as y'all both know, is very hard, very time consuming, and you don't have that time for family. You might have time to come in at the start, eat dinner with them, say, I love you. I got to go back out. You might catch a couple hours of sleep, but I found myself a lot of times in my daytime routine, getting back up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and polishing out so my guys come back in the next day to start another day. It takes a toll on the families, but you've got to take time for your family. If not, I mean, a business is no good without family. And I mean, family is very important. So I feel that, our Optimum products help me finish my job quicker so I can get back to my family and spend more time. So now what I do on Fridays at 12 o'clock, I clock out. And from 12 until Monday morning at 7 a.m., it's my family time. I don't take calls. I put my phone on, I put my phone down, and I mean, it's my time.
Do you think that's helped the business too?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And of course, my power and my anchor is God. So I put God first, and then it's family, and then my business comes. And of course, every day I say, put the people in my life, put the clients in my life that I need. And if the people that I don't need, just take them out, because they're not for me, and I'm not for everybody.
Yeah. Has that become easier over the years to go,
Yes, most definitely.
sorry, I can't do that job. Like, I don't need to do that job. And, I had someone this week, they wanted me to come take a look at their RV, and I hadn't seen it yet. And I was telling them about some ceramic coatings. Well, I get there. It's a 20-year-old RV, kind of beat up. And I'm like,
Definitely.
I don't really think that you're going to want, all the time and effort that it's going to take for me to put into this. I don't think you're gonna like. And there was one day when I would have been like, oh, whatever. Yeah, no, I can just wash it for you. I can, how's that impacted your business?
There's a lot of times you have to say no. The money is important, as you know, as we all know, but there's a time that you've got to say, "Hey, this job is not for me," or I don't fit in your budget. The way you look at that and the way I price things now. Of course, I used to look at it as a 20 was a 20. I needed that $20, and that's 20 more than I had when I started that morning. But that's not necessarily true. If you're trying to gain $20 and you're spending 100 to gain that $20, you're going in the hole. So now I price my jobs accordingly, and sometimes I overprice my jobs because I know it's going to take me so much time that I'm just like, hey, if I'm going to have to spend this time digging, I'm going to get paid for it. So yes, I find that it helps a lot.
Yeah. Tug, I've been stealing up all the airtime. You've been quiet over there. Love to hear some of your thoughts on it.
What I was going to say was, Scott, you kind of came out of, to me, kind of nowhere with Opti, right? All of a sudden, Scott Campbell, boat guru. I'm sure there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I've been with Opti on and off since 2015. So it's like 2015, 2019, kind of on and off, but then steady throughout, making every mistake possible in business.
Yes.
But then it seems like the last few years when the RV stuff came out, like Scott Campbell, oh yeah, and then I think somebody said it might have been Danny Cantrell, whoever I think was there at the time. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Scott's been testing. So it kind of, how long have you been, like, how did you get connected with Dr. G to do the testing? And is that how that worked? Did the RV stuff kind of came from your testing?
Yeah, actually, a lot of it, I want to say all of it came from me, but the way
Mm-hmm.
I look at it is, you know, I started this and I knew that Dr. G didn't have a boat line. And I'm like, we're missing
Mm-hmm.
the boat. We're missing the boat. We need boat products. And of course,
Yep.
as well as the boat products, man, it's a tough line. It really is. It's been a hard
Yeah.
sell for me. It's been a hard sell for Optimum. But there's so many boat products out there. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, do they really work? No. I mean,
Right.
yes, they work in certain things, but for me, I mean, when I was testing, I'd say we need to cut a little harder. We need to finish a little better. So what
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do is I wanted to go in there with a one step. I wanted to take
Mm-hmm.
medium to heavy oxidation and I wanted to cut it
Yeah.
and I wanted to finish it because, my average
Mm-hmm.
boat, of course, you see a lot of my runabouts here. My average boat is 90 to 110 foot. And they're
Okay.
sidewalls,
Wow.
they're houseboats.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have time to come in there on, let's say it was a $1,500 job. I didn't have time to come in there and cut that thing twice, Not
Right.
long did I have to wash it, So
Mm-hmm.
when we come up with the RV soap and all that, it came
Mm-hmm.
in and I wanted it to replace the bleach. So I wanted it to strip, I wanted it to clean,
Mm-hmm.
and get my surface prepped so I can just go in and get out. So he
Right.
designed the soap and it stripped and it cut really good. So
Yeah.
that took all the oxidation off and it allowed me
Mm-hmm.
to just get in there and go. So, that's what I needed. I needed a simplified,
Right.
timeline and time frame to get out there because we all know time is money.
So one thing, Scott, because I've done some RVs, I really don't enjoy it because then I have to become mobile. It's just not something that I enjoy doing, and then whenever I like somebody, I know typically you charge by linear foot. What exactly, like? And I'm thinking of people that are getting into boat detailing or coatings, Opti-Coat installers that want to go that route, or potential installers. How do you figure out what you charge for a given, whether it's a 30 foot or a 100 foot?
Well, usually what I do, like I have a by the foot. So let's say if it's a 80-foot boat, I'll go
Hmm.
in there for a wash and wax. I'll charge $20 a foot.
Okay.
So you're looking at $1,600 just to get me to wash and wax. That's going to take me a day and a half to do. So phenomenal
Okay.
money, to get in there and
Yeah.
get out and to produce what you need to produce. But
Hmm.
on my coatings, I charge $100 a foot, anywhere from
Okay.
100 and 110, and that includes your correction and your coating. I
Hmm.
find that the marine coating, does about the same distance as a car coating.
Hmm. Yeah.
Our ceramics are thicker, and the resin helps to protect and go on in. And I
Yeah.
find that if you can over install the ceramic, and it'll start pushing it out of the surface. So you
Hmm.
tend to have more high spots. So you've got to watch what
Okay.
you're doing when you do that. But
Interesting.
as far as running figures, I just run straight down the boat.
Okay. So if it's a 60 foot, you're coating at 60 feet times a
A
hundred a foot.
thousand or 100, yeah. So you're talking
Yeah.
6 grand.
Right. Yeah. I
And,
mean,
and when
that
you're
makes sense.
Yeah, and when you're measuring it for your coatings, you don't need to just go straight up and down the boat. You've got to allow for the height times width, porches, height times width. So, you've got two sides, and you got a front and a back porch on mine.
Right.
So, that when you go into measuring to get your coatings, that's how you measure your footage and your tubes of coating.
Okay.
And
Oh,
what's
okay.
your wash and wax include? Sorry.
So you're
Oh,
trying
wait, wait.
to measure how much coating you need by
Mm-hmm. Yep.
measuring height. Okay.
Yep.
What do
Yeah.
you what how many syringes would you need for a 100 foot houseboat?
Usually on 100 foot, I have 5 to 6, so it'll
Okay.
fall in about 5 to 5 and a
Yeah.
half. I mean,
Hmm.
I'd always rather have more on
Right.
hand than not have
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you're finishing with what kind of when you do wash and wax, what does that mean?
Uh, I go in there, I wash the boat from top to bottom, and then I go in there and polish, and then I'll finish out either with Hyper Seal, for protection. Or if I'm hitting the boat, it'll usually stay pretty clean for 6 months. So some people
Hmm.
opt out and not have any wax because wax is like a candle. You put it out in the sun, it's gone. You wash it the wrong way, your wax goes off the surface. So the way ours finishes out, you don't have much oxidation in 6 months. So I think that a lot of people doesn't opt for the hyper seal. On all my boats, I hyper seal, after I polish. But the big boats, they're protected on both sides. So, the need for protection is not, that much.
When you say wash and wax, you're doing a one-step polish in there too?
Yep. Yep. I'm hitting it with a RV and marine polish.
Oh, with
Hmm.
the orange pad?
Uh-huh.
Got it. So you do $20 a linear foot, and that's
Uh-huh.
a wash, one-step polish, and then finishing with the hyper seal probably.
Yep.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. And I'm just excited for people who, like Tug said, they want to get into boats. They want to get into RVs. They don't
Right.
even know where to start with some of this kind of stuff. They don't know what
Mhm.
works out in the field and what packages you've tried and don't work, or something you offered for a long time and, well, that's not as efficient as this, or I can give them 3 or 4 options and that's going to overwhelm them. They're not going to pick
Yeah.
any. So you kind of just have 2 options, generally speaking, right?
Yeah. If you
Hmm.
offer them so much, they get overwhelmed. It's kind of like,
Hmm.
most men need 3 options. If we
Right.
go in looking for a pair of shoes, don't pull out 30
Yep.
shoes.
Right.
Give us a couple pairs and say, hey, pick
Right.
one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I offer my clients basically a wash and wax. I mean, that's what they're looking for. That's all they've
Hmm.
ever known. And I mean, when
Yeah.
I say, hey, we can do ceramics, they're like, well, what is ceramics? And then you
Hmm.
explain what ceramics is. Okay, well, I would like to have that. But, you know, our basic wash and wax package is done everything for me. It keeps everything simple. We go down there, do what we do, and I mean, far as help, your hired help or your helpers, I mean, it's a no-brainer. They do the same thing every day. They go in, they scrub the seats with power clean, they wipe them down with ONR, they get the polisher out on the side, they polish it out, and then they cover it back up. And so if somebody calls me and said, "Hey, you missed this or you missed that," well, I can tell my guys, you know, I'll talk to them and say, "Hey, did you do this?" And they say yes, and then I can go back and tell them, what was wrong with their boat. So if somebody says you missed this, well, it's a rarely that we do, because we do the same thing every time.
Yeah. Yeah. How long were you doing a one-man operation, and then what was that like jumping into getting help? Was it because I need help, or you build it and they will come? Like, if I have some guys helping me, we can take on a bigger workload.
Well, in '09 when I started, I was in the middle of a divorce, in the middle of a recession. So I thought, what have I got myself into? So Chris Thomas and we picked up BioSolar One. That is Al Gore Jr.'s boat, the ex-vice president of the U.S. I went to the guy that I worked for in college and said, "Hey, I need a job." So he gave me that boat to do. We went down there and done the boat. Then the boat neighbor saw it. And so he said, "I want my boat to look like that." So I was a one man. I wouldn't say I was a one man show at that time, but after that, Chris and I kind of split up. And then I was a one man show trying to put out boats that I was actively growing. And I thought, well, I can't do this, by myself. So, as well as trying to find somebody, I mean, nobody wanted to work that hard. So I would try to do one boat a week, and it averaged $700-800. So if I get that one boat done, that's $800 in my pocket. Of course, if you counted your time, I probably didn't make $10 an hour if I did that much, but I was paying my bills, and I was keeping my family afloat at that. So then I just went out and I thought, well, you know, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I might as well dig in. I might as well learn what I'm going to do. And I have no other options. So factory work is not for me. I like to be my own boss, and being your own boss is hard. You have a lot of hours, you have no insurance policy, definitely no retirement unless you have enough funds to fund it yourself. So what other option do you have but to
Right.
get up and survive?
Well, it seems like you sure have done more than survive. How many guys you got working with you now?
I have a crew of probably 6 to 8 that works on and off with me year round. You know, I, I try to keep 3 or 4 with me continuously because you never know what's going to pop up. So,
Okay. Yeah. So your pricing is good for you, good for the customer, but it's also good for getting on good help, right? Because there's help, but then there's good help.
exactly. You know as well as I do, you've got to pay somebody. You can't find somebody that's going to produce for $10 an hour. So, a lot of times, you know, in the past, I had to half my work. My labor made half of my business, and I still carried everything, my insurance, workman's comp, everything. So I struggled for a long time. And now I finally find some hourly employees that I can afford to pay them good and keep them here with me year round, because detailing, especially boats, is seasonal for me. Come October, September, October, they just shut these boats down, and they don't see them till the spring. They don't think about them
Right.
because most of my clients live an hour and a half away from our lake.
Okay. All right. So what's a good and we've talked about this a little bit, but because most detailers, they want to do their own thing. They work with someone long enough so they can start their own thing, sort of a deal. What's a good kind of what have you found to be a good starting wage for a detailer that you want to keep around with you with your operation?
Well, a good detailer, and I mean, in my market, of course, average household here is 12 12.50 an hour is tops for factory workers around here. I come in and I start out at 15 to 17.50 an hour for my employees. You
Mhm.
know, the ones I have now is probably at 20, and they work 40 hours a week. So, and $800 take home for them is really good money compared to the factory
Mhm.
work here. So they're working 40 and 60 hours. And I mean, I don't know what they're bringing in, but I try to be over competitive to keep the people that I hire. But, the way I look at people is if you invest in them, it's kind of hard to really invest in people because you know as well as I do, the next day they want to go out the door and they want to do what you're doing. They want to make the money you're making. They don't see the struggles that we've all been through, and they'll just say, well, hey, I can do it and make more money and just leave me. So I'm like, okay, well, you got to do what you got to do.
Right. Yeah. But the people, what have you found to be some key characteristics in employees that want to stick around? Because, is it they respect the fact that you're taking the good calls and the ugly calls, that you're being the good guy and the bad guy? We can't do this for less than this. Like, what are the things that they're glad they have a boss for?
Yeah, well, the crew I'm running right now has been incredible, and they actually don't want the responsibilities. They want to when it comes 3 o'clock and they're done for the day, they don't want the phone calls. They don't want this. And a lot of times they say, hey boss, we appreciate what you're doing for us. Keep on digging, and a lot of times I want to be hands-on with my guys side by side. But a lot of times they tell me, hey, go get more business, go strum up more business, make the calls, take the calls, keep us busy. So, I guess it's just finding the right fit. And as well as I do, this is not for everybody. This is hard work for a lot of people. And a lot of people aren't just cut out for it. You got to be a special kind of stupid to want to really do this. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, why
Yeah.
do
Yep.
I want to force myself to wear my shoulders out to be in this filthy, dirty mess every day?
Yeah.
It's like, what am I doing sometimes?
Yep.
I meant to ask earlier, but you kind of brought it back up. With the Optimum and Opti-Coat products, how has that impacted your health? Because there's a lot of really strong, uh, toxic products and chemicals out there, and Dr. G works really hard to make good products that are safe for not just us but our employees, customers. What's been your experience working with Optico products, the no dusting with the compounds and all that?
Well, the way I look at chemicals, if it's on you, it's in you. I mean, it's regardless, you're
Mhm.
breathing it, you're touching it with your hands. I'm not a glove person, I don't have time in the summertime. If you put the black latex gloves on, I mean, you're sweating. It's like a water balloon in there,
Mhm.
If you
Yep.
open your hands, it just runs down your wrist. So,
Right.
Optimum is really been good. I mean, it seems like Dr. G is loving the environmentally friendly stuff. And that's why when we did the boat and marine wash, we did pH neutral, we did a low alkalinity cleaner, the dustless and everything works great on the marina. Some of my videos, that Yancey's done for me, we did an ONR thing and we poured the water into the lake and you can actually see a turtle and a fish coming up. So
Mhm.
it's environmentally friendly and marina
Yeah.
safe. So,
Yeah.
I think that it's wonderful how he's doing.
That's great. What do you think about that, Tug?
Yeah, I mean, as far as environmentally friendly, when VOC stuff, all these laws came in, tire shines, and of course back then we were using like slimy, nasty stuff.
Yep.
But it was garbage. And stuff now, I think Dr. G makes. I agree. I think it's environmentally friendly. Because I'm not gloves either. Like my shop's pretty hot. The ceilings are really low. I'll run air conditioners, but I'll put the gloves on, and I mean the sweat. I'm dripping the sweat all over the paint while I'm coating it, and I take the glove off, and my hand is so pruny,
Yep.
and I can't even look at it. It looks It looks so gross. It looks like Swamp Thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, but I try to wear gloves for coatings just because. But and then when I'm doing an interior gloves, I can't really feel anything. One thing I wanted to ask you, Scott, how do you get new customers?
I, I don't spend time or money on advertising.
Okay.
Uh, I wanted to do big,
Hmm.
advertising campaigns and all that back in the day,
Yeah.
but Angie wouldn't let me. She's like, "No, your business should be word of mouth based on what you produce." So
Okay.
I've just been blessed in that aspect,
Hmm.
that the boat neighbors and all that. And of
Hmm.
course now, with the videos and all that I'm
Yeah.
doing, which I'm not very camera, savvy or whatever, I just do what I do. But
Yeah.
most of the time, if I post a picture on Facebook or if I go to TikTok or, I don't do much Instagram,
Hmm.
it's just all word of mouth. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, when they call, they said, well, I saw your work on Facebook or I saw your work on TikTok or stuff like that. Advertising takes a lot of budgeting and
Right.
marketing is, I mean,
Yeah.
is phenomenal to have,
Hmm.
but if you don't have the money to spend on it,
Right.
let your work show and let your
Right.
work be your marketing. Let your
Right.
work be your business card.
Yeah. I think with being mobile, I think there's added expenses with being mobile. Personally, I feel
Yes.
like if you're mobile, whether you're doing cars or boats or RVs, you should be charging more than fixed because you're burning fuel. You're not working from one job to the next. You're spending money, and it's an unknown cost. On the other hand, you kind of have an advantage being mobile because people see if you have your van lettered or they see you working. I've heard of guys that are mobile getting work just from somebody seeing them coming up to them. So I'm assuming most of your client is just repeat, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I think that's the strength with mobile is to find a core customer base and then just cycle through them. And then, and I wouldn't want to get into mobile. It's just not my thing. But it just makes sense to me from an outside perspective to if you do want to grow the business, let's say you're busy, you're full time, you and another guy, or maybe you have two guys that are servicing all the regulars. If you want to get bigger, you can't really take them and move them. You hire new guys and then go start a new route, kind of like they do with snack foods. I mean, is that something that I have a feeling I know the answer? Um, because it sounds like you can do advertising and get bigger, but then there's always unknowns, and then there's new problems created, which then you need to hire new people to take care of them. Or if you kind of stay small, which of course with that there's more potential for money, but if you stay smaller, it's more controlled, but yet you might run out of work. I mean, are you kind of more of the stay a little bit more
Mhm.
predictable, consistent, or go create a new route?
Well, to me, I would rather stay consistent. And I
Hmm.
mean, yes, would I love to grow? I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess I'm not. I guess I'm comfortable where I'm at.
Hmm.
I have brought my business to what I need. The way I
Yeah.
looked at it and the way I built this, if it could just keep me busy year round and keep my guys something to do year round, I
Yeah.
would be satisfied with what I have. Could I always have more? Yes. But the way I look at this is right
Mm.
now we service 5 docks on the lake plus our shop, and
Okay.
we probably average 150 to 200 big boats a year,
Oh
and
wow.
then that's probably 75 to 100, maybe sometimes 110 to 150 small boats. So
Okay.
that keeps me busy, and I
Yeah.
have the crew now trained that I don't really have the time to spend to train somebody else to start
Hmm.
another branch. At this point in time, I guess you could say I'm satisfied. But
Yeah.
what I want to do is I want to be able to spend more time with Optimum. And we're starting to travel. We're doing the Houston show, the Shine Time
Okay.
Expo. We're going down there. I'm doing a
Yeah.
training course, on marine ceramics versus car
Yeah.
ceramics. So
Yeah.
I want to be able to be in front of
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
besides my job taking me and keeping me here.
Right. It sounds like to me, and that, I don't know the ins and outs of your situation. Um, it sounds like to me, and I think it's kind of for me too, like hire people, take over the work, and then I move on to something else, and I think, what am I going to do? But it sounds like you could very not easily, but if from my perspective, it's a neat idea for you to be less polishing boats and more doing trainings and
Yeah.
almost building up the boat side of Opticoat. I mean, that
Yeah,
just makes
well,
sense to me.
that is my goal. I rarely polish a boat anymore.
Okay. Okay.
If I do, it's doing a training or teaching
Yeah.
a new hire,
Yeah.
what to do. But most of the time, I spend my day running around, making appointments, checking on the
Okay.
work we've done, and I mean, I work on my business instead of in my
Okay.
business.
And it kind of sounds like your business is doing really, really well, and you're able to kind of be the entrepreneur. Can you just give a little bit of maybe advice or perspective on transitioning from being polisher and
Yeah.
like manager? And I just finished reading EMS, so these stupid words are stuck in my head. And they differentiated entrepreneur, manager, and technician. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the transition from technician to manager, then to like entrepreneur?
Well, up until about 5 years ago, I spent every day with my guys with a polisher in
Hmm.
my hand. And I had a
Hmm.
manager at a marina come up to me, and he was the GM. And he said, "Hey, man," he says, "you do phenomenal work, but," he says, "you need to work on your business,
Hmm.
not in your business." He said, "You need to step back." He said, "You need to manage your business. You need to manage your guys." And he says, "You need to continue to work on." So, being a business owner, I guess I'm more of a leader with a hands on leader. You know,
Hmm.
I don't want to ask my guys to do nothing that I can't do or I've not done myself.
Right.
And if
Right.
it's hard times, I jump in there with them.
Hmm.
But I have to stay away from my business, and start working on the business. Like I said, if you're not willing to
Yeah.
put the grind in, I mean,
Right.
you're not entrepreneur, business owner, leader, you're not going to make it. If you're not
Right.
willing to grind in the bad years, you might as
Yep.
well give it up because, I mean, it took me 5 years before I gained any traction in my market because my market was so saturated with new detailers coming out. Every time they got
Okay.
a tax return, they grabbed a bucket, a pressure
Yep.
washer, and I can do what you do. Well, come on, there's
Hmm.
plenty of room. So I
Yeah.
had to fight my way for
Hmm.
5 years before I made traction. So, you
Yeah.
know, in this business, as well as you guys know, if you're not willing to grind and spend the time,
Yep.
you're not going to make it. You're going to go straight
Hmm.
down.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's good.
And what's been your relationship with dealerships? Do they, hey, this is what I offer. Someone buys a boat from you, send them my way. Have you had a relationship like that? Has that been good or bad? Is your client acquisition directly through the people who are buying the boats more than dealerships?
Um, I don't go to dealerships. There's sometimes that I will go to a dealership, and if a client has bought a boat and they want me to coat it before it hits the water, I'll go do that. As far as a dealership program, I've never really got into it because, as Tug said, that takes more people to hire and to go on with them. So the way I look at a dealership market, yes, there's probably a phenomenal market out there, but I choose to stay here. Now I have a Suntech vendor program with the marinas that I'm at. Suntech owns 75 marinas throughout the country. And what I do is I do their maintenance contracts. I've got a couple of them that I coat their boats, and then I go polish their houseboats. They have a fleet of rental boats, so I go in the winter and polish those out. But I try to stay in that area, and hopefully one day, I'll catch that second gear and maybe try to go into the dealership market. And I mean, but right now it's just not for me.
Yeah. Right now, it's more work than what it's worth because you already got the work coming in.
Yes.
And then, so you're doing most of your jobs are in the water, right?
Yes.
So if you're going to do a polish and a ceramic coating, that's not including the hole.
No. If they want the hull done, they'll have to bring it into my shop, and then we'll jack it up off the trailer and put the jack stands under it, and then we'll polish the bottom, which is very extensive work, because you're on your back. So
Hmm.
that's where you get the big bucks, and
Hmm.
I won't touch a bottom less than $2,500 if I'm going to ceramic it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when you're charging linear foot on a wash and wax or on a ceramic coating, then we're not even talking about the hole normally.
No. Water line up.
Got it. Got water line up. Okay. If you can
Hmm.
see it, it's getting cleaned.
Yep.
Got it. So, but you're probably not reaching over and polishing the hull of what you can see when you're on the boat, are you?
Yeah, we actually are. I mean, like a runabout, if it's on a lift, you've got about that much space to the water. So we polish all that down, and you go to the front nose and you can reach out and grab the front nose of it. So yeah, it gets all coated and polished.
So that is hard work.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah. But you're going the extra mile for the customer. When you're hitting the water and you're dealing with fresh water. So when you're hitting the
Hmm.
water and you're trying to do a ceramic coating and then what your pad gets wet or what do you do when you're at the level of the water to get a good finish?
Well, you just gotta learn what you're doing and just hang over. And if your pad gets wet, you gotta have another pad to help you out. So you always keep extra supplies, and you always got to think about that. If you drop a polisher in the water, what are you going to do? You're going to pull it back up. And luckily, we've been able. If they hit the water, it just kind of cleans it out for us. So we hit the GFI and then barely turn it on, and it seems like it gets all the dust and the dirt out. So I'm not saying dip your polisher in water every day, but if it
Yeah.
happens, just be careful and get back up and go again. Just have extra tools and everything that you need.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have anything that you've been thinking about or do you want to share about those events coming up before we get off here?
I don't really know, like I said, I'm new to all this, but I'm really looking forward to my trip around the sun with Optimum. I'm excited. Dr. G, I think, is a real close friend of mine, and I love him to death. He's been great for our industry. I don't know. You see all these ceramics and all that coming out, but they're all a derivative off of Opti-Coat. And I mean, G will never get the full credit for it,
Right.
but if it wasn't for G, where would we be? That's the way I
Yeah.
look at it. So,
Yep.
no, I'm looking forward to the Shine Time Expo, and Kurt's talked about doing an RV, training course with Optimum. So, I don't know what our future holds, but I know that we're going to accelerate and we're going to come to the top again, and
Hmm.
I'm always here for anybody that wants to reach out to me.
Hmm.
I'll help you in any way I can, because I know boats, and that's about all I know. I mean, I can't say that I've read 1,000 books, and blah blah blah, because I don't have time for books. I have time for work, and that's polishing
Yeah.
boats.
Yep.
And so that's what I do, and that's just me. It's a simple life. Use your
Hmm.
good products, use simple products. You ain't got to carry 10,000 things to the lake. You can carry 3 bottles. You can detail a boat, and your profit margins are great.
That's awesome. When is the
Yeah.
Shine Time Expo and where?
It is June the 7th and 8th in Houston, Texas.
Okay. And how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way?
You can text me at 931-224-1273 and leave me a message. Find me on Facebook, Executive Choice, Scott Campbell, however you need to get a hold of me.
Open book. We really appreciate it. Todd, any last
Yeah.
remarks?
I mean, Scott, I'm going to say you're definitely better on camera than you think.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, thank you.
the question is, could you talk by yourself for an hour? Well, yeah. I
No,
mean,
definitely not.
yeah, and that's okay.
I
And
do talk to myself a lot, I mean, I need some professional advice every once in a while.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's true.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
You're your own counselor.
yep, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think you did really good. Your videos look good. Um, and I'm sure you probably feel stupid on camera, but I think it comes across very good. It's simple to the point. It's probably better that way because some of us like to ramble, and some of
Yeah.
these, which is why I can't watch detailing videos because it takes literally 6 minutes for them to actually do what the video says they're going to do. They talk like,
Exactly.
oh, oh man,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
annoying.
and Yancey will tell me a lot of times. He says, "Just be you." I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a cut
Yeah.
up, by
Right.
trade. I'm
Yep.
not serious at all. I love my job. I love what I
Yeah.
do. The passion shows in my finished
Yeah.
product. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
as far as to come on here and say, I can't give you an hour's worth of how I polish a boat. I spray my polish on a pad. I go to polishing. I do a
Right.
section at a time like everybody
Yeah.
else. It's
Yeah.
not scientific, it's just
Right.
work and labor.
It's
It's a
art.
simple
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
It's
It's
art.
very
Yeah.
much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, thanks for doing this, guys. This has been a blast. And
Yeah.
thanks for tuning in, everybody. And Scott, if you can give us your catchphrase as a sign off, then we'll be very blessed indeed.
All right, guys. As you know, shine on.